The eviction notice trembled in my blood-stained hands as I read it for the 7th time, my vision blurring from the concussion I'd gotten when they threw me down my own front steps. I had 30 days to vacate the home I'd bought with my disability, compensation after losing my leg to an IED in Kandahar. 30 days before the Willowbrook Heights Homeowners Association would seize everything I had left in this world. The paper was signed by Margaret Chen, HOA president, in her perfect cursive handwriting, the same woman who'd brought me casseroles when I first moved in, who'd called me a hero. The blood wasn't mine, though. That belonged to Danny Morrison, the HOA enforcer who'd fallen down my stairs during our conversation about outstanding fees. He was breathing when the ambulance took him away, but barely. I watched through my broken window as they loaded him onto the stretcher, his wife Sarah crying hysterically on my lawn. 2 years ago, I'd thought I'd finally found peace in this quiet suburb outside Phoenix. The house was modest, a 2-bedroom ranch with a small yard where I could sit and remember what normal felt like. The neighbors seemed kind. The HOA fees were reasonable. I paid them religiously, every month, $180 on the dot. But then the letters started coming. First, a violation. Notice for my grass being 3.2 inches instead of the required 3 inches maximum. $150 fine. I measured it myself with a ruler. It was exactly 2.8 inches. When I called Margaret to dispute it, she laughed. "Oh, honey, you must have measured wrong. Just pay the fine and keep your lawn properly maintained." Then came the architectural violation for my wheelchair ramp. Apparently, the beige paint I'd used didn't match the approved earth tones in the HOA manual. Another $200. The ramp had been professionally installed and painted to match my house perfectly, but according to their expert evaluation, it was off by half a shade. Week after week, new violations appeared. My porch light was too bright. My car was parked 6 inches over the property line. My mailbox was mounted at 42 inches instead of the required 44 inches. Each violation came with escalating fines, late fees, and administrative costs that multiplied like cancer cells. I tried reasoning with them. I attended every HOA meeting for 6 months, limping in on my prosthetic leg, bringing documentation, photos, measurements. The board would listen politely, then vote unanimously to uphold the violations. Margaret would pat my shoulder afterward and say, "We know this is hard, Thomas, but rules are rules. We can't make exceptions." The fines mounted, $3,000, then $7,000, then $12,000. My disability payments couldn't keep up. I stopped buying groceries. I rationed my medications. I called legal aid, but they said HOA law was complex, and they didn't have resources for a lengthy fight. That's when I started investigating. Late at night, when the neighborhood was asleep, I'd hobble around with my camera and measuring tape. What I found made my blood boil. The Henderson's grass was 3.5 inches tall, no violation. Jim Patterson's mailbox was mounted at 40 inches, no violation. Sarah Morrison's porch light was twice as bright as mine, no violation. But they weren't veterans. They weren't living on disability. They weren't easy targets. I dug deeper, using skills the Army had taught me about intelligence gathering. Public records showed that, in the past 5 years, the HOA had foreclosed on 7 homes in our development. 6 of those homes had belonged to elderly residents or disabled veterans. After foreclosure, the properties were sold at emergency auctions to a company called Desert Bloom Properties, LLC. It took me weeks to trace the corporate filings, but I finally found it. Desert Bloom Properties was owned by Margaret Chen's husband, Robert. They were targeting the most vulnerable homeowners, drowning them in fraudulent violations, then seizing their homes for pennies on the dollar. The rage that filled me was familiar, the same fury I'd felt in Afghanistan when we discovered that our trusted interpreter had been feeding intelligence to the Taliban, the same cold, calculating anger that had helped me survive 3 tours in hell. I started documenting everything: photos of the selective enforcement, recordings of HOA meetings, financial records showing the connection between Desert Bloom and the Chen family. I was building a case that would destroy them all, but they were building something too. 3 months ago, Danny Morrison started showing up at my house. Wellness checks, he called them. He'd peer through my windows, walk around my property, take notes on his little clipboard. He'd mention how concerned the neighbors were about my deteriorating mental state and suggest I might be more comfortable in a Veterans Affairs facility. "You seem agitated, Thomas," he'd say, his pale eyes scanning my living room. "Paranoid. Maybe it's time to consider your options before things get complicated." Last month, the visits became more aggressive. Danny would arrive with other HOA board members, sometimes with people I didn't recognize, men in cheap suits who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. They'd demand entry to inspect for code violations, claiming anonymous neighbor complaints about strange smells, loud noises, weapon stockpiling. I knew what they were doing. I'd seen it in Iraq, psychological warfare designed to break down the target's defenses. They wanted me paranoid, isolated, desperate. They wanted me to either break down completely or lash out in a way that would justify their next move. So when Danny Morrison showed up this morning with an eviction crew and a sheriff's deputy, I was ready. "Thomas Kellerman," the deputy called. "Out. You're being evicted for non-payment of HOA fees and violations totaling $23,147. You have 1 hour to remove essential personal items before the premises are secured." I looked at the deputy, a young man who couldn't have been older than 25. "Deputy, I'm requesting you examine these documents before you proceed." I handed him a thick folder. "These show that the HOA has engaged in selective enforcement and fraud. I'm also a disabled veteran, and there are federal protections." "Sir, I'm just here to keep the peace," he said, barely glancing at my evidence. "The civil matter has already been decided by the court." That's when I knew they'd corrupted the system too deeply for legal remedies. Danny Morrison stepped forward, flanked by 2 men I'd never seen before. "Thomas, this doesn't have to be unpleasant. We've arranged for a moving truck and temporary housing at the VA hospital. You'll be much better cared for there." "I'm not going anywhere," I said. Danny smiled. "I think you are." He nodded to his companions and they started toward my front door. That's when 23 years of military training kicked in. The first man reached for my arm, and I broke, his wrist with a movement so fast he didn't see it coming. The second man went for his radio, and I put him on the ground with a chokehold that cut off his air supply for exactly 7 seconds. Enough to drop him, not enough to kill him. Danny Morrison pulled out a taser. "You're making this worse for yourself, Thomas." I grabbed his wrist and twisted until he dropped the weapon, then shoved him backward toward my front steps. He lost his balance and tumbled down the concrete stairs, his head making a wet sound as it hit the bottom step. The deputy was calling for backup. The moving crew was running for their truck, and Danny Morrison was bleeding from his skull onto my walkway. I should have felt something. Remorse, fear, satisfaction. But all I felt was the cold, empty calm that had kept me alive in 3 war zones. Now, 2 hours later, I'm barricaded in my house while police surround the property. They've cut my power and phone lines. A negotiator with a bullhorn keeps asking me to end this peacefully. Through my front window, I can see Margaret Chen standing behind the police line, talking animatedly to a detective. She keeps pointing at my house and shaking her head sadly, playing the role of the concerned neighbor dealing with an unstable veteran. But I can also see the news crews gathering, Channel 12, Fox 10, CNN. My story is about to go national, and they'll have to answer questions about their foreclosure scheme. Even if I don't survive this, the evidence I've compiled will surface. Other veterans and elderly homeowners will be protected. The negotiator's voice crackles through the bullhorn again. "Thomas, we know you're a good man who served his country. Let's work this out. Come outside with your hands visible." I'm tempted. I'm tired of fighting. 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 years battling the VA for my benefits, now this war with the HOA. Maybe it's time to surrender. But then I see movement in Margaret Chen's body language that makes me pause. She's not just talking to the detective. She's arguing with him, gesturing frantically. He's shaking his head and walking away from her. She pulls out her phone and makes a call, her face twisted with frustration. Something's wrong with their narrative. I use my binoculars to scan the crowd more carefully, and that's when I see him. Robert Chen, Margaret's husband, standing next to a man in an expensive suit. They're not watching the house. They're watching the news crews with obvious concern. My military-trained mind starts connecting dots I'd missed before. The eviction notice was dated 3 days ago, but I only received it this morning. The sheriff's deputy looked uncomfortable and kept checking his phone. The moving crew ran at the first sign of trouble instead of staying to support law enforcement. Danny Morrison had a taser. Why would an HOA enforcer carry a weapon? I grabbed my laptop and checked the local news websites. There it is, buried on page 3 of the Phoenix Herald from 2 weeks ago. HOA foreclosure practices under federal investigation. The B. FBI has been building a case against fraudulent HOA schemes across Arizona. They're specifically looking at targeting of veterans and elderly homeowners. Margaret and Robert Chen are already under investigation. That's why they accelerated the timeline. They needed me out of my house, and preferably dead or institutionalized before the federal case moved forward. A mentally unstable veteran attacking HOA officials would discredit any testimony I might give. The blood on the eviction notice. I look at it again. It's not from my head wound. It's from a small cut on my palm from when I grabbed the paper this morning. But why would my hands be bleeding when I opened my door? I examined the paper more closely under a magnifying glass. There are small puncture marks along the edges, barely visible. Someone had planted something sharp on the notice. Maybe broken glass fragments, designed to cut whoever handled it. They wanted my blood on that eviction notice. They wanted physical evidence that I was unstable, dangerous, bleeding when I received it. The negotiator's voice again. Thomas, your neighbor Danny Morrison is in critical condition. If he dies, you're looking at murder charges. End this now, and we can work with you. But I know Danny Morrison isn't in critical condition. I know exactly how much force I used, exactly how he fell. He has a concussion and some bruises. The blood looked worse than the injury actually was. They're lying to escalate the situation, to make me desperate enough to do something truly stupid. I open my laptop and upload all my evidence to a secure cloud server, then email copies to the FBI field office, 3 different news outlets, and a veterans' rights organization. Whatever happens to me, the truth will survive. Then I do something they won't expect. I call Margaret Chen's cell phone directly. Hello, Margaret, I say when she answers. This is Thomas Kellerman. I think we need to talk. There's a long pause. Thomas, what are you doing? The police are trying to help you. Are they? Because from my window it looks like you're trying to control the narrative. Federal investigation making you nervous? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know what you're talking about. Desert Bloom Properties, Margaret. Your husband's shell company. 7 foreclosures in 5 years, all targeting veterans and elderly residents. The FBI knows. You're delusional, Thomas. You attacked an innocent man. You're having some kind of episode. Danny Morrison had a taser, Margaret. HOA enforcers don't carry weapons unless they're planning to use them. What was the plan? Tase me until I had a heart attack? Make it look like the crazy veteran couldn't handle the stress? I can hear her breathing heavily through the phone. You're sick, Thomas. You need help. The eviction notice had glass fragments embedded in it. Someone wanted me bleeding when the police arrived. Someone wanted physical evidence of instability. The line goes quiet for almost a minute. Margaret, still there? What do you want? Her voice is different now, harder, more direct. I want you to call off your dogs and walk away. Take your losses on the federal investigation and leave me alone. That's not going to happen, Thomas. Then we have a problem. No, she says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. You have a problem, because in about 30 seconds, you're going to get a phone call that changes everything. She hangs up. 28 seconds later, My phone rings. Unknown number. Thomas. Kellerman. The voice is professional, clipped. This is Agent Sarah Morrison, FBI. I need you to listen very carefully. Morrison. The same last name as Danny, the man I threw down my stairs. Agent Morrison, I've been trying to reach the FBI about HOA fraud in my development. I have extensive documentation. Mr. Kellerman, my husband is in the hospital because of you. The world tilts sideways. Your husband? Danny Morrison is a federal agent, Mr. Kellerman. He's been working undercover for 8 months, investigating the same HOA fraud you've been documenting. You just assaulted a federal officer. My hands start shaking. That's impossible. He was working with them. He was building a case, getting close to the Chen family, documenting their methods. From the inside. You've just destroyed an 8-month investigation and seriously injured a federal agent. I sink into my chair, the phone nearly slipping from my trembling fingers. But the taser, the threats, he was trying to get you away from the house, safely. We knew they were planning something today. We've been watching you, Mr. Kellerman, trying to protect you. You were supposed to be relocated to protective custody this morning. Everything I thought I knew crumbles around me. The eviction crew wasn't there to throw me out. They were federal agents posing as movers, there to help me disappear safely. The sheriff's deputy kept checking his phone because he was waiting for the all-clear signal that never came. The Chen family knows about the investigation, Agent Morrison continues. They've been planning to eliminate you as a witness. Danny was trying to get you out alive. Through my window, I can see Margaret Chen again. She's not arguing with the detective anymore. She's smiling, talking calmly into her phone. Agent Morrison, I've uploaded evidence to multiple locations. The investigation can continue. Mr. Kellerman, you need to surrender immediately. There are snipers positioned around your house, but they're not police snipers. The Chen family has resources you don't understand. Danny was your only protection, and now he's unconscious in intensive care. I look through my binoculars again, scanning the rooftops. There, a glint of metal on the house across the street, another on the apartment building 2 blocks away. How do I know you're really FBI, I ask, because I'm the only person who can tell you that your real name isn't Thomas Kellerman. The phone slips from my hand and clatters to the floor. I scramble to pick it up. What did you say? Your name is Marcus Webb. You're not a veteran. You're a federal witness who's been in protective custody for 3 years. The Chen family runs a money laundering operation for a drug cartel. You witnessed a murder in Chicago and agreed to testify in exchange for a new identity. The room spins around me. My memories feel solid, real. Afghanistan, the IED, losing my leg, buying this house with disability payments. But as Agent Morrison speaks, cracks appear in everything I thought I knew about myself. The house, the disability payments, the prosthetic, leg, all part of your cover identity. The memory implants were experimental, designed to give you a complete backstory that would hold up under scrutiny. Memory implants. The phrase triggers something buried deep in my mind, flashes of a different life. A warehouse in Chicago, blood on concrete, a man in an expensive suit putting a gun to someone's head. The Chen family found you 6 months ago, Agent Morrison continues. They've been systematically destroying your cover identity, trying to make you unstable enough to either kill yourself or do something that would discredit your testimony. I look at my prosthetic leg. I remember the pain of losing it, the months of rehabilitation, the nightmares about the explosion. But now there's another memory underneath that one. A memory of walking into a federal building on 2 healthy legs, signing papers, agreeing to disappear forever. The trial starts next week, Agent Morrison says. You're the key witness against Vincent Torino, the man who's been paying the Chen family to eliminate you. Without your testimony, he walks free. Vincent. Torino. The name hits me like a physical blow. I remember now. The warehouse, the execution, the moment our eyes met across that blood-soaked room. I remember running, hiding, living in terror until the FBI found me. Danny Morrison has been keeping you alive for 8 months, Mr. Webb. And you just put him in the hospital. I slump against the wall, my entire identity crumbling. Thomas Kellerman, disabled veteran, was never real. I'm Marcus Webb, federal witness, and I've been living in an elaborate fantasy designed to keep me sane and safe. What happens now? I whisper. Now you surrender. Let us get you to a secure location. Testify next week. Help us put Torino away forever. And if I don't? The snipers aren't going to wait much longer. I look out the window again. Margaret Chen is walking away from the police line, getting into a black sedan. Her husband, Robert, follows, along with the man in the expensive suit. They're leaving because the job is almost done. I think about Danny Morrison, Agent Morrison, lying in a hospital bed because he tried to save my life. I think about the other veterans and elderly homeowners who've been targeted by this scheme, not knowing they were just camouflage for a witness elimination operation. Agent Morrison, I say, I have one condition. You're not in a position to negotiate, Mr. Webb. I want the HOA fraud charges to stick. Real veterans are being hurt by this scheme, even if I'm not one of them. Don't let my fake identity destroy a real case. There's a pause. The Chen family will face charges for both operations, the HOA fraud and the witness intimidation, but we need you alive to make it stick. I walk to my front door, my prosthetic leg, or whatever technology is creating the sensation of a prosthetic leg, carrying me forward. My hand reaches for the doorknob. Mr. Webb, Agent Morrison says through the phone. Danny wanted you to know something. In all his years of undercover work, he's never seen anyone fight as hard as you did to protect a home that wasn't even real. He said you have the heart of a soldier, even if the memories aren't yours. I open the door and step onto the porch, hands visible, just as the negotiator has been asking for 20 minutes. The police surround me immediately, but they're gentle, professional. As they lead me to the armored vehicle, I see one of the snipers on a nearby rooftop packing up his rifle. He's wearing civilian clothes and drives away in an unmarked van. Margaret Chen's black sedan is already gone. As the armored vehicle pulls away from the house I thought was mine, I catch my reflection in the bulletproof window. The face looking back at me is Thomas Kellerman, disabled veteran, HOA victim, American patriot. But underneath that reflection, I can almost see another face. Marcus Webb, federal witness, man without a country, keeper of deadly secrets. Next week, I'll walk into a federal courthouse and testify against Vincent Torino, the man who ordered my death. I'll help put away a killer and dismantle a criminal organization that's been hiding behind HOA fraud and targeting the most vulnerable members of our communities. But tonight, as we drive through the Arizona desert toward whatever secure facility will house me until the trial, I mourn for Thomas Kellerman. He wasn't real, but his fight was. His love for that modest ranch house, his pride in his military service, his determination to protect other veterans, all of that came from somewhere real inside me. The memories may have been implanted, but the man who fought for them was genuine. Agent Morrison rides beside me in the vehicle, updating me on Danny's condition. He's stable, conscious, and asking about my safety. When we reach the safe house, she says, I can call him. Agent Morrison, I say as we drive through the night. What happens after the trial? New identity, new location, new memories if you want them. I think about that. The possibility of forgetting Thomas Kellerman entirely, of becoming someone else completely. Can I keep some of it? I ask. The parts that made me fight back? She smiles for the first time since I've known her. The courage was always yours, Marcus. That's not something we can implant. Outside the window, the lights of Phoenix fade. Behind us and ahead lies whatever future awaits Marcus Webb, the man who discovered that even fake memories are worth defending if they're built on real love.